All right, y'all. We had a comment. We had a comment earlier, and I left a long paragraph on the comment, um, because the brother said something about the polygamy and how I feel about polygamy and how, and it wasn't nothing. He wasn't being rude about it. He feels, he believes in polygamy and believes poly is lawful, and disagrees with me. Nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with that at all. And I went on trying to explain to him certain things that, just to give ideas that everything shouldn't have to be explained. And the perfect example of that is Christ saying that, on these two laws hang all the laws. Okay? Just on these two hang all the laws. So if you treat your neighbor as you treat yourself, and you considering your neighbor, your wife being your neighbor, should be more than a neighbor to you. But if you don't want things done to you, you shouldn't want them things. You shouldn't do those things to her. We don't need a law written out saying, or a prophet to come down. Well, we shouldn't need a prophet to come down and say, hey, brother, you shouldn't be sleeping with these AI robots. You can't be marrying these AI robots. We shouldn't need a law that says that, right? If we understand and truly understand the principles of these laws, you shouldn't need a law to say don't smoke weed. You shouldn't need a law that says that. All right. But anyway, that's how people play, and sometimes people play these games. I fear the Lord too much to play them. To be honest with you, I fear the Lord too much to play them. But I wanted to use this example after I sent the message that this example came to me, and I said, well, there's brothers from Straitway, or formerly from Straitway. Because I said, you got to understand the difference between prescription and description. You got to understand the difference between prescription, things that are prescribed. I want you to go out and get multiple wives and repopulate the earth. Versus we seeing brothers with multiple wives. Nobody told them to do it, but they start doing it. All right. And we seeing these things prescribed. And how are we seeing it prescribed? Why are the writers putting this in here? That so-and-so had this many wives. Why is he saying that? Why is that even necessary? Why do we need to know how many wives David had? How many wives Solomon had? How many wives Gideon had? What was the purpose? What was the writer's intent? And I wanted to use the example of, if we were prophets today, if we were the ones that they were writing about today, if Straitway, if Dowell was the king of Israel, and and somebody's coming along to write this story today, what would they write? Would they write about the brother who came, Neely's ex-husband, or real true husband, who came to the land, came to Israel, and was trying to start teaching, that wanted to be a part of Israel and start teaching Dowell certain things, King Dowell, and he started teaching King Dowell about polygyny in the poly worlds, as my brother Mahar Carr said. He started teaching them these things, and end up, this is the writers writing this stuff. He comes in, teaches him all of this stuff, and then he ends up getting his wife took. He teaches King Dowell how to, hey man, we need to be teaching poly and teaching, and having multiple wives, and then he get his wife took. And then he goes to Florida. I think he went back to Florida, and he was trying to court another wife, and that wife ended up leaving him. Then King Dowell took his took his daughters, raised them up for a few years, and then sold his daughters off to somebody. And then sent the dude, let's say Chavez. I know it's Spanish brother. Let's say Chavez. I forget the brother's name. Sent Chavez a receipt for him selling off his daughters. Now, the same person that went up the Straitway to try to tell King Dowell that, hey, we need to teach you never thought about the poly and da and teach him these things. He ended up taking your wife, kicking you out of the organization, and then went on a whole rampage, went on this whole, what's the term I'm looking for? Anyway, he put in this great effort to cover up his sins. He put up this great effort to do all of these videos to say how he's really not in sin. How what he did was not sin. Oh, it wasn't sin. It wasn't sin. And then get all these different brothers to do testimonies and to say and to turn a blind eye like they didn't see that man get his wife took. Now, if I was the writer, you think I'm writing that in there to show you that, hey, poly world is okay? You think I'm writing that in there to say, oh, well, this is an example of King Dowell had multiple wives and Chavez had multiple wives? Or am I in there trying to tell you about this foolishness these jokers done did, and he ended up getting his wife took? He ended up, now this joker's in adultery and denying it, finna mess around and see judgment in adultery, unrepented. And bringing all of these people in so that these other people can get their wife took. And that's what we seeing. We seeing jokers getting their wife took, getting is that the example? Is that what we supposed to be doing? Is Straitway the example? And to be honest, it's probably the best example we have in the community. It's probably the best examples we have in the community. But these are this is David, and that, like David having all of these wives, and then his stepson, not his stepson, but his one of his sons end up raping his darn daughters. All right. And the son end up raping the daughter. One of the sons end up raping all your darn concubines. Y'all think this stuff is in here? That's what I'm saying. The difference between description and prescription. Why are these things in here? Why are these lessons in here? We're looking at a lesson. We're looking at the exact same thing when we're looking at Straitway. We're looking at the exact same thing. We're looking at a polygamous community with issues with adultery, fornication, people leaving their husbands, leaving their wives, kids being misplaced, people don't know where their kids at, kids being abused. These aren't examples, people. These aren't examples. And just be careful. I'm not one, like I say, even if I had to judge a matter, man, if the sister want to stay in that, and she have been, hey, I'll pray, I'm not one to say, hey, well, y'all need to separate and get a divorce, and that ain't my lot. But if a sister is, I would urge a sister to get out of, if she ain't with it. You know what I'm saying? If it ain't what it is. And that's in that Exodus, I want to say Exodus 22, where he talks about, if that man takes another wife, if you keep on reading, it says if she feels like that it ain't going the way it's supposed to be going, she can leave. A lot of brothers don't read that. They don't read that part. But anyway, I did a lesson on that, and talking about how that is in the condition of a slave, that you've bought a slave and now you want to make that slave your wife. We don't read that either. We just read the verse. See, anyway, I don't even want to get into that. But how do y'all feel? What would y'all glean from the story of King Dowell with the 4 wives? What story would you glean from that? Would you glean that this is Yah's will to have polygyny? Pray this thing was edifying.